Hello and welcome to another demonstration in our pre-recorded demonstration series. This time we're moving on to 3D, but not in some sort of ambitious AAA movie modeled 3D rendering. We are going to jump in via the means of After Effects, if you like. So it could be referred to as 2.5D for this first one. Got that stack of cards kind of approach, and really the crux of it is introducing the Z or Z axis and depth to the layers of the content you produce, but also importantly a virtual camera and manipulating the potential of that camera, the animation, the movement, the depth of field, the focus, etc. So here's kind of what we'll aim for. I don't want to make a really long demo out of this, so we will try and achieve something like this without going into it. And the idea is you jump in, you experiment, and it becomes a journey in itself, wrangling the camera. So here's one thing I've produced. So it's the kind of effect that you would see done to, it's sometimes referred to as motion control. And you'll find other resources within this module pointing to that motion control relative to embellishing still imagery, if you like, in documentary photographs. Not that it has to be. This could be done to any of the layers in any artwork you want to work with. Here I'm working with some open source map imagery, very high res, shared by Adobe a while ago, promoting their content library, if you like. And another one here, just two different things focusing on the one combination of layers there. So you can imagine that setting the scene for something, a cliched travel montage perhaps. But yeah, once you start zooming in. So I think here I've pushed it too far in terms of the res of the image. You can see it's starting to be lost as we zoom right into the flyby of the other layers and get into here. So I started with this Photoshop file here. What I've done is just selected and cut out different chunks of the map just for effect. I've added some adjustment layers just to distinguish those from it. But this could be you've deep etched a image of someone from the background, pulled them out of the background, if you like, of a photograph. And important discovery, I was quizzed on this at one point. Now within Adobe CC 2020, it is clearly evident that if you make changes to a Photoshop file after it is imported, it will update that file within After Effects for you. So a bit like a linked InDesign file or changing the files for a web design, if you like. So I've never witnessed it because I think it could be problematic. I've always worked on a comp, for example, with its artwork there, and then I'd save another version for making the next step, if you like, in a project, and haven't gone back and changed it. But it could be quite powerful if you just wanted to tweak some particular things. But you could also imagine it become quite problematic if you accidentally started to work on a Photoshop file that you'd forgotten was linked into an After Effects project, and you've altered the position or something that has dramatic effects on your animation within After Effects. So just to keep that in mind, it's there, the potential is there. We're going to jump across to After Effects, and I've got a new project ready to go here, and we will do the full import process. So I'm going to go and import that Photoshop file. Let's go and find it. You should see it in your starting files for this week. It's in the Photoshop folder, the PSD folder. We want to import it as a composition, and that'll do. We get the extra reminder here, yes, it's import editable layers. Let's keep those, and you'll see what it will do to our adjustment layers. It does something quite nice. If you keep it editable, we go OK. We can see over here we have the file map layers. Let's double click on that, and all the trickery, if it's too complex in your Photoshop file, is put into comps straight away instead of the raw layers here. So I'm assuming most of you are familiar with that process. Now that Photoshop file I set up just via the new file process in Photoshop, and it includes guides. So this is the safe zone, if you like, or the unsafe zone outside the edge of these guides here, where it's generally recommended for broadcast reasons and varying TVs and viewing devices that you don't put critical content in this area. So if you're wondering why that's done like that, that is why. But I did it at 4K. I wanted to maintain the res, so I'm going to go into my comp settings and we will adjust things. See 4K, I don't want that, so I'm going to go drop it back down to HDTV 1080-25, which we'll normally do, and you can see the res of things is changed. Not the res, the size of the frame is changed. I'm just going to check something here just in case you are immersed in mucking around with the different renderers in this 3D realm, which you will see in a following demo video. Nothing will work unless we go back to classic 3D. So make sure we are on classic 3D. Nothing will work as we would expect. So always check that. So we've got the basic things, we set up the duration and things like that. I'm going to go for 10 seconds just in case we need more time. Black background's all fine. Everything looks good. But yeah, check your renderer. Make sure, remember that classic 3D, if you want to do this fly through and you want to utilize the camera and depth of field and blur and things like that, you will lose it if you jump to the Cinema 4D renderer in this context. So classic 3D, don't forget, let's go back, let's go OK. Now what it's also done is thrown my guides out of whack. So I'm just going to zoom out a bit here. And what can we do about that? We go up to View, Clear Guides, Gone. Get rid of the guff, you might like to keep them, reposition them, etc. And what I've got here, well, it's kind of alright. Maybe I'll just, I can get rid of the background layer. We don't need a white background layer. Let's clean things up a bit. We choose all things and we should be able to resize, holding shift here a little. Now, I don't care that our bounding box for different things is all the way out here. That's good. That's our larger image in the background. And the important thing to remember is that center. If we're going to jump in and utilize a camera in 3D here, and we're going to utilize it without, and we're going to enter the danger zone without attaching it to a null object to control it. Things can get a little bit chaotic. So we call it, maybe we're going freehand with the camera. So it's a journey within itself to wrangle it across multiple keyframes and the like. So first up, we should arm things to be 3D. I'm just going to go through one swipe. Now, if you did that and you still had the Cinema 4D renderer selected for whatever reason, your content and layers would kind of disappear and start to misbehave. Okay, so the whole point of this exercise is for you to start utilizing the Z or Z axis for depth of your layers. You will see we've armed things with 3D. You should be used to that within Transform, you see that you now have that option in the properties for position, rotation, and multiple other things. The important thing now to start wrangling this new dimension is to consider the view of your content. Now you can do multiple views and things like that, but for keeping the screen size useful for producing this video or this demo for you, I'm just going to jump between the active camera, and when we introduce another camera it will appear here, and the left view. Now we are looking at our artwork in 3D, which is a pixel deep, if you like, and all on the same layer. We are looking at it from the side. Now I've got a particular layer order set up here. Naming's not great, but I'm going to just work with 4 as what's going to be closest to us. We are going to introduce a camera. It is going to appear over here, but before we even need to worry about the camera, we need to and think about the depth of our layers, and to get the best effect with depth of field and the flybys with the camera, or just little tweaks in perspective, you need to think about the depth of your layers. So we can do that manually or in the frame. So we choose one. I'm going to go layer 4 and grab the right axis handle there and move it forward. Now I'm going to go and grab the next one, and we're looking at our artwork from the left. You think about what you want to be closer to you, to the viewer, to the camera in your artwork. I'm just creating an array of things here. Even will do, but depending on what you're doing, things might be closer, further away. So think about depth and perspective of what you look at in a scene in the real world. And there's our map background image there. Okay, so let's look at that from the front again, back to the active camera. Not much difference, but things would have changed in terms of scale. But it's not really scale. Things are closer to us in that 3D plane, or further away from us now. And the important thing to remember is there's a center point. You go here left. If we're not using the assistance of a null object, this area here becomes like the default point of interest for the camera and the like. If you want to keep things simple, make this here the anchor point, not literally the anchor point, but the point that you're aiming for, the end point in any transitions, camera movement and things like that. Of course you can animate all that, but just to keep things simple for you guys for now. So we need a camera, and it's not going to do much at this point in time. Let's go new camera layer, and I'm going to go 35mm. You can choose, you can go 50, 35. I'm going to exaggerate that just from my very, very basic understanding of photography. Different lenses produce more depth of field, etc. And we can adjust all those things. Remember what you played with last time, and I've been going nuts with it. So I'm going to just choose that one as a middle ground. I think we go to fisheye lens if we go down here to wide angle. That's my understanding of it. So comfortable medium around 35. Let's go OK. And you can see now, I'll zoom out, we're still on the left view. There is our camera. That's what it's looking at. And here is the point of interest. And you can adjust that and muck around with that point of interest. And there's also the focus plane, if you like, is on this. So where it puts the background layer, where it puts the artwork, the center. So 0, 0, 0 is my understanding here. And I'm going to, well, let's just to play around with that, let's move it to this first layer. I don't think it's going to make any difference at this point. Let's go and have a look. And we can go camera 1 or back to active camera. That is the active camera. There. So very little difference. It's maintaining things in terms of focus. Now if we go and have a quick look at the camera options, we should be able to start to muck around with so obviously we've got position. Well, you can test that if you're really excited about things. Sorry, point of difference, always make that mistake. We already altered that manually before, so I'll just undo that. So position, Z, here we go. There you go. Just by dragging that, we are doing a fly through to the center straight away. Now what happens if we leave it there? Now, there's maybe a more focus on the background now. and things are starting to get a bit blurred around on the different levels of depth. But you can see there's already point of interest again. There is already some magic happening, which we wouldn't get if we didn't mess with the positions of things on the z-axis there. So pretty powerful in itself already. If we go into the camera options, let me just get some more space here. We've got typical camera things. Zoom, check that depth of field is on. I've had to turn that on. We chose the camera and it's remembered it by default from now on. We've got focus depths, we've got aperture, and we've got blur levels. So my understanding is you mess with aperture, you can increase or decrease the blurriness of things. Probably going too far there. But that's one, you could just get away with just messing with that a little bit if you wanted to have that camera effect of looking through and past things and having particular things focused, or you can actually have a focused plane if you like. So if I go back and look at this from the left again, there should be, there it is, that's our focus plane. So currently it is looking through and past even our background layer. So you can grab it manually or you can use it, the sliders in the properties. So I can go back to the background there. So I can keyframe that to focus on things as the camera makes a journey. If I wanted to, I can leave it on the background for now. Okay, back to the front view. Sorry. Yeah. So let's animate something. Let's go with the position of the camera. So I might start a bit further back before I start keyframing anything. More of the whole scene there. That'll do us. And let's do a flyby for a few seconds. So I'll go here, move the player head down. We ended up with, I've got 5 seconds of things to mess with here. Let's go with, don't forget you got your view, you can change things here. Let's do something within that 5 seconds, just because it's landed there in creating the file or the comp. 3 seconds, and then make the change. So we're going to zoom in. Now, if you go too far, you fly through the artwork, and that's going to be a problem. So I'm going to go to about here, we'll see what happens. So the point of interest, the camera starts turning to maintain the point of interest. So I'm going to leave it there just for this example here. Still got some guff here, things still out of focus. So what should we do? We can go back into the camera options and we can start keyframing. You can have that focus ready to go at the start. So depth of field, focus depth. Let's go here. So what it's done, it's pushed it through with the camera as a rig, if you like, as we've moved its position. To prove that point, let's go back here, have a look at from the left. See that? It's pushed it out. See our point of interest is still here. That's why the camera wants to turn around as it's flying past. So you can animate that point of interest as well. You can mess with the focus. You can see all the little details that you're going to have to sort of maintain as you go, that I'm not going to pay heaps of attention to just because we don't want this demo to go for an hour. So back to the focused distance here. Let's keep it back here for now. And we could keyframe that, but if we just keep it there, the start could be a little bit blurred, which may make sense. When the camera changes and then it moves into focus. So depending on what you want to do, you can keyframe that focus as well. You can see once I start doing that, render time starts getting very chunky. So let's just go down and have a look at the frame itself. When we get to here, see if things have cleaned up. There we go. Things have cleaned up a bit. So the other positive thing about working with that background and the point of interest right in the center of comp, which obviously isn't going to work. You're going to be sliding around all the time, but just for this example, you can introduce new content. Let's say I wanted to add something else here. Let's pick a straight layer rather than a comp. We'll move that in and drop it above the background layer here. And it's not 3D yet, so it's going to kind of misbehave a bit. Let's see what happens when we do arm that. It's there. It's on the right plane, at least, with our background. And we can go through and grab it or move it around in terms of position. There it is, still hiding over there. And we could put it there. And of course, we could scale it down. Everything's relative. Now the anchor point position is being very annoying with it. I probably should have reset that at the start. Can I just grab it, put it where we want it? There we go. It's not too critical because we're animating with the camera. So, but let's have a look again. So I could find it. Things are relative to that center point. So I could find it again. I didn't introduce it, and it just got lost in the 3D realm of what was set up. So the idea is definitely keep things relative to that default, the original imported background layer. Have one layer that is always there, that is like your point of reference as you're going through this journey. Left view again. Okay, where is it? It is on that same plane, remember? So if I'm going to change the position of it, I can just go and grab it, or I can tweak things. Here, that was scale, not useful. Here it is. So we might want to bring it forward a bit. And we'd have to adjust focus and things like that. So, back to the front. Not the front, we could go to the front, we'll go active camera. Things are happening here, flying through. We get to this artwork here. Now you could then start doing other things. Keyframing. Let's see if when it gets to here, that's kind of in focus. Is depth of field's okay at that point in time. I could then animate this. I can then zoom in further on that. So yeah, there is other camera options. Let's go here, mess around with the zoom quickly. That can be useful. We could change the point of interest, or be happy with the camera here and then zoom around and look at this smaller artwork. The possibilities are infinite as long as you're maintaining your res. And so zoom, zoom, zoom. Let's lock it in at this point, somewhere about here. Here. Might want to give that some hang time. About there, so let's start messing with zoom. Lock it in, first keyframe, then move play it along. What do I want to do? Just quick zoom in even further. Let's say we're aiming for a position on the map. Be okay. And the other things you could start messing around with is orientation. If I want to sort of capture everything, I'm happy with that camera there. Go and you keyframe all the things you want to lock in. And then if I want to change the position of things, the point of interest, the orientation of the camera, I know it's going to not interrupt the animation before that point. What could I do? Yeah, I could mess with the point of interest. I could mess with the rotation just to show you that you could flip around and increase the perspective for effect, if you like. So The camera's having a look around. Maybe we're going to sweep to another scene. On the Y rotation, we could go the X rotation, things like that. Maybe we wanted to change position on the map. And then we could zoom in further, etc., etc. Just depends on what you want to do. So, a little bit of chaotic something there to mess with, if you like. Now, for added effect, you could then mess with the focus and the depth of field as you work your way through that. It's all about experimentation, having some fun with it. And you can then also introduce what would 3D be without a light. Of course, there's also the material properties of each of those layers now you could mess with too. You wanted to maintain sort of paper quality and things like that. You can experiment with those. Let's go new light. And I recommend, just trust me, first when you're mucking around with things is point. You don't want spot, it's very specific. The realm will be dark. The realm will be dark. The 3D realm or the world that you've created. Get too dark, ambient, I think will just fill up everything too much and not give you enough control. But point is just like a glowing lamp you can move around. Fall off, smooth. Do you want it to cast shadows? Choose that. It depends if you've set up a light before, what it will maintain here. You can have shadow, darkness, etc. Intensity of the light, you can increase. All things that can be changed later. Let's go OK. Where is it in the scene? You can go and check it out. Again, it is a thing that exists. If I go back here to the left, you can see that our light is here. So you could also animate that to follow the camera. You could even parent it to the camera, tricky things like that if you wanted to build up a whole camera lighting rig. And just depending on what you want to light in the scene, we could hide it behind. If it does get hidden behind one of our shapes that we have, one of the circle objects, the lighting may, yeah, there we go. So what's in front obviously is dark because it's being blocked by that. That could be cool too. And we fly through and things are more lit as we get into here. And with all this lighting though, the render time goes crazy slow depending on your machine. So I would suggest introducing lights. Look at that at the end. And you can do all the things like turn your render resolution down and things like that. But yeah, nowhere near real time here. But if I wanted to, I can go into that camera, sorry, that light. Yeah, you can transform it, but you can increase the intensity, and it's going to muck up with the render again, like way too far, pushing it way too far. Fall off smooth. And the other thing is that you can become quite cool as well. You want to check, that's just going too far, let's turn this down. You want to check for each of the objects you've created, you can, and it will increase render time. In material options for each, cast shadows is off. So depending on where your light is and what's happening, if you turn cast shadows on, and you can mess with the light, a layer can transmit light as well. Accept shadows is on, but if you want that light to have that full effect and a sense of depth happening, so let's see if something does happen a little bit for the extra layer we added down here. I will go to the material options for it. Is it on to cast shadows? Will it accept shadows? There we go. The one underneath is already set on by default to accept shadows. So we've got a light here emanating down to this object, producing a shadow underneath here. So you can see this dark 3D realm starts to take form in the stack of cards, the After Effects flat layer yet 3D realm aesthetic. Okay, so I'm not going to sit around recording this rendering. You can see I've turned the shadows on now, slowed down even more. So this is time for a render walk, a render coffee, if you're going to test the results. But you can see experimenting like this would take time. So small sections to get your lights and things right, or critical scenes or critical parts of a framer's window fly through. I'd probably say it's a bit overlit there, but hopefully that inspires you and just quickly shows you the potential of 3D, or entering the realm of 3D proper, if you like, within After Effects without having to go to the full extent of Cinema 4D, not even the renderer in After Effects, not even Cinema 4D Lite. You can still achieve a lot with any form of graphics you bring into After Effects. Just got to make sure, even footage, you can do flyby video footage in this way as well. Could be masked within one of these circles if you like. You can imagine complex imagery starts to, and animation starts to build up quite quickly in using this. Just keep in mind, it's all about messing with your depth of your layers from the left or the right, however your brain works, and controlling the camera in this sort of rudimentary preview. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Experiment. See you for the next demo.